Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Baseball Dads podcast. I'm pretty excited today. Our guest is Troy Silva, and I learned about Troy a few weeks ago when he had posted a video that was shared by a couple of my friends on Facebook of him and his buddy kind of doing some really funny remarks that parents would make at travel ball games. So I'm going to ask him a little bit about that. We're going to get his philosophy on coaching, state of baseball, and hitting. So Troy, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so let's get your info out of the way first. How can people, I know you have some hitting programs, you do consults, you have a great book. How can people kind of get a hold of you as they listen to this podcast? I'm sure they'll want to. Why don't you give out your website and all other info you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have, there's probably 3 or 4 things that we kind of offer to the public. The first thing is my website. So the website is kind of my way of offering some free information to the public regarding anything baseball. I do anything from how to hit to parenting to, coaching, stuff like that. And in the website, I do offer evaluation assessments. I've done tens of thousands of assessments evaluating players. I'm a professional scout too. So I try to give players an honest assessment of where they're at, where they stand, and just kind of a mapped out plan of attack to actually get real improvements. And then in there as well, I also do hitting analysis, real hitting analysis, not your typical hitting analysis where you kind of analyze the swing, but I give feedback about how to actually improve and get better and actually fix your hitting versus just fix your swing. I can fix your swing too, but that's in there. And then the last thing in the website is the mentoring. I try to be a mentor to anybody that has the desire to want to be mentored both on and off the field. So I mentor a few kids all over the country and just try to do that too as well. So there's my website. That's troypsilva.com. We also at Rio Athletics have the RioBaseball.tv, which is our basic video hub to everything pitching, hitting, fielding, catching, weight training, pretty much everything that we do. We have probably 400 to 500 videos in there. And then the last thing is my book, The 9 Innings of Hitting. That's available on Amazon and some other places too as well.
Awesome. So give us a little background. Give us a few minutes of, I know you played some professional baseball. Kind of give us a little snapshot into your world.
Well, obviously played baseball like everybody else growing up. From California, so Central California, Atascadero. Always played baseball growing up. I would consider myself average to good player, kind of growing up, played Little League All-Stars, played high school ball, and then all of a sudden, my senior year in high school, I just got really good somehow, and I really didn't put a lot of work into it, just got good and was all these accolades in high school, all California State, all that kind of mumbo-jumbo, and then ended up going to play some JUCO ball at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo, California, and played there for 2 years, transferred to Lewis Clark State College up in Idaho, and played for the craziest coach in America, and ended up getting drafted by Cleveland as a pitcher, which was the worst day of my life because I never pitched before and I hated pitching. But it was really hard, so they tried to make me a pitcher, so I ended up playing, I think it was 5 or 6, 7 years in pro ball, just basically battling through arm injuries and stuff like that. And after I was done playing there, in a nutshell, my college roommate, and friend, buddy, Jose Rio Berger, had this academy up in Seattle, and my wife and I moved up here, I think it was 2002, and we've been here ever since, just doing training and helping kids and helping coaches and families, and we do everything from hitting lessons to college mentoring to fall baseball to team training. It's just kind of a never-ending cycle of just trying to help people and help kids, accomplish their dreams.
That's awesome. So, our listeners are dads. Obviously it's called the Baseball Dads Podcast. I know you, just all the stuff I've seen and read, you have a strong family presence in everything that you do. And before we get started, I just want to how much I respect that.
Awesome.
What do the dads need to know? I like to kind of ask, we have our world here, you have your world there. Based on what you see in your world, if you were sitting down with a dad at Starbucks and he said to you, Troy, what do I need to know? What do I need to know? My kid's, coming up in baseball, it's starting to get into these teams and all this kind of stuff. Let's say you're sitting across from a dad with a 9, 10-year-old kid. What does he need to know?
Well, the first thing is I've been very, very blessed in my everyday job of what I get to do. And it's kind of a sad thing, but I've learned over the years of what not to do. So I feel like, dealing with, we have 10,000 kids a year almost come through our doors, and it's a lot of families, it's a lot of kids, and I've learned over the years what not to do, quite honestly, by other people's mistakes and failures. So it's a huge blessing, but at the same time, you kind of look back and you're like, man, you look back and you say, oh, that family did it totally wrong, or that family did it right. And yeah, I think just by being in the environment that I'm in on a daily basis is just giving me a good, clear perspective of kind of what not to do and what to do. If I was specifically talking to a dad, I have a 10-year-old, so I have a 10-year-old in baseball right now, and never really coached him. This is the first year he's actually wanted me to coach him, and I've tried to stay away from actually coaching my own kids because I know it's tough, and there's a lot to it, but it's not an easy thing, especially when your kid's kind of chill and not very motivated, and he just kind of goes through the motions. So it's tough as far as that's concerned. So I've kind of stayed away from it, but my main advice would be, number one, keep your relationship with your child most important. So I think a lot of relationships are broken through sports. And my friend Jose Rio-Berger wrote a book called Creating Relationships, Winning Relationships in Sports, and it's amazing. He just basically gives his testimony about, what his life's been and all that kind of good stuff. And he talks about that aspect of how relationships could be broken through sports. And it's just the society we live in these days. It's crazy. So I think the first thing to a dad is keep your relationship focused. Make sure you're there for him as a person more than just a baseball player. And then the second thing is just keep it fun. It's I think there's so much fun that's being missed out on in baseball these days. It's crazy. I posted something the other day. There's 6U national T-ball tournaments, and I'm just it's so beyond ridiculous. I'm on it too.
Well, we actually invited
beyond
the guy.
Ridiculous. Yeah?
Yeah, we actually invited the guy onto the podcast. So at first he was, I just posted actually on our Facebook. At first he was all yeah, and then he was all nah. So let's see. But yeah, it's going to be the subject of our podcast next week, that tournament. It's interesting to me that it's T-ball, right? So
yeah,
they literally can't play the game.
Yeah.
They can't pitch. They can't hit a thrown ball. I assume there's no catcher, right? So there's no battery. There's no hitter. And so before they can actually play the game, we're teaching them that the object of the game is to win a tournament before they can even play.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely on the same page, and we believe the same things. Here's a question I always ask guys who played a little bit of professional baseball. You obviously said you were great. It clicked for you in high school. So that's one thing that I would encourage dads to listen to from your story is that how many guys don't get a chance to get to that senior year where it might click?
Yeah.
But you play professional baseball. If I'm a dad sitting across from you in Starbucks and I say, my kid's really good, how hard is professional baseball?
Well, I mean, honestly, I thought it was easy. Quite honestly, I just threw hard. And I think one of the things that I think I was successful at as a pitcher is understanding hitting. So I think I actually did really well in professional baseball as far as stats and numbers and all that kind of stuff, just because I understood hitting on a different level that most pitchers probably didn't. So I was able to mentally adjust to what they were trying to do and vice versa, all that kind of good stuff. But definitely the talent level is crazy. As far as the overall talent and to play professional baseball, it's crazy. They're really good. You got some young kids that are in there developing, and that just is what it is. But it's not an easy thing to play professional baseball. Of course, at a young age, if you really like baseball and you're a baseball kid, and your goal is to play pro ball or make it to the major leagues, and then you kind of get into playing, and you're like, man, I'm not as good as I thought I was, or it just becomes this different approach. So it's not to say that you can't go out there and try to accomplish your goals and your dreams, but I think that's where our society and our culture is these days. It's a misinterpretation of how easy it is to play at that level, and it's like this fake quest to try to travel all over the place to accomplish your goals. It's like the focus just needs to be on just improving and getting better, and if it happens, it happens. You can't just buy your way into pro ball, or you can't travel your way into pro ball. You got to be good enough, and that's where most kids and parents fail these days. They think they got to travel all over the place or pay for whatever to do it, and it's just not the truth.
Yeah, every time I talk to parents, I start every talk with, God makes the major leaguers. And if
Amen.
God made your son a major leaguer, you'll know it.
Amen.
You'll know it. Yeah, it'll be very hard for him not to, for that ability not to shine through. What do you see as like, I always feel like there's a moment where talent kind of hits a block, right? So the kid is like the best 9-year-old, he's the best 10-year-old, the best 11-year-old, the best 12-year-old, and then all of a sudden, like maybe 13, 14, he's like, wait a minute, I'm not the best anymore, and that talent kind of doesn't. I think that's a mistake parents make, is they think like, hey, my kid's the best 9-year-old, he's going to be the best 23-year-old at some point. Right. Where do you feel like that? Is there a moment in the age group that you see with all the players you work with that maybe dads need to get out ahead of? I'm not sure if I made sense with that question, but no,
I think I know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see all ranges of kids every day, from little guys, little 9-10-year-olds all the way up to pro guys, and the common theme is you can tell, honestly, I can tell at 9 years old, 10 years old, if a kid has potential in playing beyond, let's just say high school, playing in a college, maybe pro ball one day. You can just tell by just their swag, if you want to call it. You can tell by their confidence. You can tell by their body language, their demeanor, their athleticism, their coordination. You could tell if they have an opportunity. On the flip side of that, there's kids that ended up playing pro ball through our program that you look at them at 10 and 11 years old and you're like, man, they should go play another sport. So it's like, the development side is so different, and there's so many factors. This is where people don't understand. There's so many factors that go into being really good at baseball. I mean, most people think, oh, you got to get hitting instruction from Troy, and you got to do this and that, and you got to swing this way and throw that way. It's like there's so much to just the mental part and the confidence part and the baseball instincts part and the strength part and dealing with failure and then there's grades and making good decisions and staying out of trouble. I mean, there's so much to it that actually goes into, do they have an opportunity to play at that level? So I think to answer your kind of question is you can tell at a young age, but you can't really tell. I mean, me, for example, if you would have saw me at 10 or 11 years old, you would have said probably no chance to play college ball. And I ended up playing pro ball. You know what I mean? And then I've seen kids where I've seen them at 11 years old. I'm like, this kid's going to be in the big leagues. No problem. Ticket easy one day. And then they ended up getting injured, getting hurt, making bad decisions, going to play another sport, doing something else, or just not panning out to what they could be. So I don't think there's a perfect answer to that as far as like the age or anything like that. But it's just, that's why it's like, it's kind of like this dangling piece of meat that's there, because you never know when kids will develop, if they'll get it or if they won't get it.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a dad who's feeling the pressure of, hey, they're asking my kid to play on this team, they're asking my kid to play on that team, he wants the guest pitch and all these things that are kind of normal, seem normal now. What advice do you give to a dad who has to kind of evaluate those things? What should he be looking for in those situations?
Well, the first thing is parent information is bad information. So usually, I mean, most of the time, the information that's out there with exposure and recruiting and travel ball and this and that is usually parents just talking and, or talking to somebody that's all about just taking their money, like a 6U tournament or something like that. And then they end up thinking they have to do it. And it's like this fear of missing out, right? They see their buddies' friends doing this and they see their other kids doing that, and they just don't want to miss out on the opportunity for their kids. But I think the first thing is, as a parent, is you have to be realistic about who your child is and how good they are. And then always just put them in an environment that's going to allow them just to be successful. They don't have to travel all over the place at a young age. It's okay to play Little League. You know what I mean? There's stuff like that. Now, if you have a little stud 10-year-old he's out in Little League and he can't throw the ball as hard as he can because he might hurt somebody, and you just know he's a stud, it's like, it's okay for him to go do some select ball or play up or whatever. But it's like first and foremost is be realistic about who your child is and how good they are. And if they're just okay or average, just let them play locally, let them play T-ball, let them play, minors, majors, let them play Little League, let them do all that stuff. And you'll know it if you have a stud. Those kids that are studs that everybody knows about, those are the kids that need to be challenged a little bit more at a younger age. But I think the main focus is just be really, really, really honest in your evaluation of your own kid, which is a hard thing to do for most parents.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So I want to switch gears. Let's talk about hitting, because I think we're on the same page also too with hitting instruction. I feel like too many people work on the act of swinging and not on actually what it takes to hit. So you wrote this book, 9 Innings of Hitting. Just kind of, again, if I'm sitting at Starbucks, what's the first things I need to know about hitting if I got a kid who's starting to develop?
Well, let me just start on the hitting side of things, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but there's way too many people out there these days that are teaching hitting that shouldn't be teaching hitting. And I think people with Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, I think people are, they're wanting to help and they want the information, but they go way too detailed on things they shouldn't be going detailed on. So the first thing is I think there's way too many people out there trying to pass on information. So that's not to say that the average, little league helper dad can't get information to try to help his team. It's just saying that there's too many people out there that are portraying being so-called professional hitting instructors that shouldn't. So
right.
I think we need to do our due diligence when it comes to hitting, and that's just it. I don't think really hitting is taught at all these days. So I literally will do anywhere from probably 6 to 8 hitting lessons per day, every day of the week, all day. I get a couple days off. And I see everything. I see kids that are just bad athletes that can't even hit the ball, and I see studs at 9 years old that you got to challenge them. And then you see girls, softball girls, and college kids and pro kids that come back. I see everything. And quite honestly, the more I do the instruction, I told a guy the other day, the more I do instruction, the less I teach, because I understand that there's so much more to hitting than just what the swing looks like. And quite honestly, I think most players, it doesn't matter what age they are these days, are being more hindered than helped in the hitting side of things. I see more kids that are being taught things that they shouldn't be taught, which is actually making them worse as a hitter, whereas if they just did it on their own, they'd probably just figure it out themselves. So I think the overall swinging versus hitting thing is basically not even taught. I mean, if you go do any hitting instruction anywhere, everyone always starts with your swing has to do this, your swing has to do that. And I'm not saying that I don't teach swing mechanics. I'm just saying that if there's more to hitting than the swing itself. And I tell coaches when I speak, I tell players when I work with them, it's like you can't learn to hit until you have a foundational swing. The problem is the foundational swing doesn't make you a great hitter alone. There's way more to it. There's plan, approach, there's mentality, there's adjustment making, there's vision, pitch recognition, laying off of pitches, having a good approach, making adjustments to pitchers, bat speed. I mean, I can sit here all day and work on things, and those aren't even things that most people even get to, because most people think that they need to get to this certain level of swing mechanics, and then they get to this certain level of swing mechanics, and they don't know what to do next, and they kind of get stuck. So what do? They change the swing some more. So our swing mechanics are just like the bottom of the barrel foundational piece with where to start. Once you get your swing mechanics where they need to be, then you really learn how to hit. And I honestly, these days, it's like, I mean, if I'm dealing with little kids, the first thing I start off with is swing as hard as you can. Especially with these new bats that are coming out, they need to learn how to be aggressive. And then when they learn how to be more aggressive, then you fine-tune this, fine-tune that mechanically. But you can usually fix the swing by just working on the player's mentality, timing, contact point, and bat speed. And the funny thing is if you do those things, the swing will naturally start working itself. And then also don't be so quick just to change everything all the time. Let a kid be who they are. If he's a 12-year-old that has a pretty good swing and it's not perfect, but he still rakes and crushes, let him do it for a while. And as they get older, they'll kind of figure it out on their own a little bit. But I think that's just it. I think it's too mechanical. I think kids these days are more concerned about looking a certain way versus competing and battling in the box. And I see a lot of robots these days. I say it all the time. I see it. It's robotic swing versus get in there and compete.
Amen. 100% agree. It's funny, like I think you're probably about my age. I'm 44. And so I always, I got to update my references, but they just come out naturally. So if you took Ruben Sierra and Gary Sheffield, right, two really awkward hitting styles, and you took them to, you said, hey, this is Gary Smith and Ruben Jones, and you took them to a hitting instructor, 10 hitting instructors, and you didn't tell them who they were, every guy would change their swing.
100%.
Every single guy would tell Gary Sheffield, you can't rock your bat like that. Sierra, your hand's got to be here. You're not going to be able to do that and hit. Well, they hit 500 home runs and 400 home runs or something like that, and I'm with you 100% on that. We have a program called New Rules of Hitting, which it's based on Ted Williams' quote that you get a good pitch to hit. I'm always fascinated with people that are working on the swing before you even know who's pitching that day. Before you even know what you're going to see. Could you imagine? I always like to change the context to other sports, and you think, could you imagine LeBron James working on his offense without knowing who's on the schedule that day? That they may have to make an adjustment for a guy who's a better defender or forces them one way or traps them in the corner. Just running what they want, and then, they'd be surprised every time.
Yes, I agree 100% on that.
You mentioned that a lot of things there's things to look out for. What are some of the things if a dad tonight is listening to this on the way home and he's taking his kid to a new hitting instructor, what are some of those things that might be detrimental, that they should be looking out for? They're like, hey, if your hitting coach does this, it's probably not the best thing. What would be some of those things?
Well, first of all, I think people need to do due diligence on who they let their kids, train with. Just because someone played in the big leagues or did this or did that doesn't mean they know what they need to know as far as teaching. I mean, that means they were pretty good at what they did, but teaching is a whole different story. I think that's where we got to with where we're at in our society. I think that the teaching part is the missing part. I think a lot of people understand how the swing works and understand, the basics about hitting, but I think when they go to teach it, that's where it gets all messed up. So the first thing is just understand, just because someone played at this level or played at that level, or, this was Bryce Harper's high school coach or whatever, it's like, doesn't mean they know a lot about what's going on. And then the second thing is just, if you're not getting individualized attention for your child, it's a waste of time. If you're putting your child in some sort of system of hitting where we do this or we do that, then it's basically a waste of time, and it's not going to help them. And what that means is the coach should be able to identify that player's weakness and say, okay, this is your weakness. This is how to fix that weakness, and this is the plan of attack to do it. And if you can't get that, and if the coach can't actually give you the real weaknesses of the player, then they don't really know what they're doing. And it's like, that's the first thing we always start with, is I always ask kids, okay, what do you struggle with? You hit the ball, you hit the bat, you get jammed, you hit the ball too deep in the zone, are you early? Is your timing late? Are you scared of the ball? Do you pop up? Do you ground out? Do you go oppo all the time? Do you pull all the time? And if you ask these questions, you'll get an understanding and an idea of what they need to do to really improve. Now, these days, the whole let the ball travel deep, hit the ball oppo approach, every kid that I deal with these days, is very rare that I even see a kid that's too far out in front these days. And the reason why most coaches see that these kids are too far out in front is because they're usually doing some non-challenging front toss or soft toss at 5 miles an hour. Of course they're going to be out in front. So I think these days with what's going on, the kids don't get challenged, and you need to make an evaluation of what the kids do in a game or off a live setting, because that will give you the feedback of what goes on. So, for instance, I did a lesson with a kid the other day, and, I'm doing some front toss and some soft toss to get him loosened up, and his swing's perfect. And I'm going, okay, his swing's pretty good. And then I start throwing a live pitch, and guess what he does? He starts bailing out a little bit. You can tell there's fear involved. So if I'm just going to sit there with that kid and say, hey, you need to fix this, that, and whatever with the swing, it's not doing him any diligence whatsoever to actually improve. I need to teach that kid how to be more aggressive, how to overcome fear, how to create confidence, because that's what's going to actually make that kid better. And it's totally opposite with the instruction these days. Is most of the time it's just this system of looking a certain way without really diving into what that player needs. So the player needs are the most important thing, and that it's not only just recognizing what their real needs are, but it's actually putting together a plan of attack to how to fix it, which that's where a lot of coaches fail as well.
Yeah, again, amen. I think a lot of dads, there's a lot of dads that are listening, they're working regular jobs. It's really hard for them to discern, who's a good instructor and who's not. So a lot of these things, if you can kind of go in with a little bit of a checklist to say, hey, I heard Troy say this on the podcast, this guy didn't even go into that, or things that, if you're listening, these are things you really have to, to kind of, to be aware of. Cause I think, and I want to get your feelings on this, because I see a lot of really organized, good looking swing practice. Like you said, I'm not a big believer in the tee or flipping a ball soft toss and from front and stuff like that. I think you need to hit. I think you need to hit things that are thrown at you. That's what you're trying to do. And I walk in and I see, and just for all the listeners, a great trick of a coach is organization. If kids are moving and things look organized and kids are swinging, it makes the coach look good. It just looks like it just looks good. right? For someone walking
into that too.
Wow, this place is cooking. The place might be cooking, but I don't know if anyone's really getting better. If they're just kind of going through the repetitions. Like, so what are your feelings on that?
So we have we have some select teams, and we don't do a lot of select teams. For instance, our 15U team right now is probably one of the top 3 to 5 teams in the country. They're really good. There's 10 Division I athletes on the team, and they'll come in for team practice or whatever we're doing that day. We make them do their own soft toss just to get loose. So they'll literally soft toss for 2 minutes, and then we're going full hour and a half of live repetitions. We got jugs machines with curveballs. We got our pro batter machines, with fastballs. We have our 15-year-olds hit 95 to 100 miles an hour, and people say, well, why do you do that? It's because it makes them learn how to speed up their vision and speed up their eyes and be able to figure things out. And they'll literally just go from cage to cage to cage, and they'll just work on whatever it is we have approached that day, as well as just being challenged. And that's just it. I'm not anti-tee work at all. We hit off the tee every day, but I think there's too much tee going on these days because, like you said, the ball moves in a game. So if a kid can't learn how to adjust the movements and can't learn how to adjust the different speeds and velocities, they can't hit, no matter how good their swing is off a tee. So we do some tee work at our place, but it's not your typical sit there for half an hour and do this and that. Now some kids need some tee work, right? Their swings are horrible and they need to learn how to control their body and stuff like that. But I think it goes back to the whole, well, Tony Gwynn hit off the tee every day. Well, I get it too. We hit off the tee,
right.
But that's Tony Gwynn. That was his way of getting loose, and that was his sequence of getting ready to play that day, which isn't a bad thing. But I guarantee Tony Gwynn didn't just sit there and hit off a tee for 2 hours. I guarantee he was on the field taking live BP. I guarantee he hit off machines, and there was all that involved.
And if you took it away from him, if you took the tee away from him, he wasn't going to stop being Tony Gwynn.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I agree 100%. I think this is where, if I was to recommend any organization, any high school coach, any college coach, you have to get more live repetitions, because the live repetitions will make the player figure it out themselves a little bit versus you having to try to teach them everything. And that's, these kids these days, they get every swing they take. Think about it. Every swing they take, somebody's saying something bad about their swing. So they're always taught that something's wrong with me, something's wrong with me, something's wrong with me. And then they get into a game and they fly out one time and they're thinking something's wrong with me. What's wrong with my swing? It's like this whole culture. They think something's always wrong versus how about you just get in there and figure it out. And I do lessons sometimes where I have to say to myself, don't say anything for a couple swings. Let them figure it out. Yeah. Because the ultimate concept behind that is you're not going to be there for every swing they get in the game. They have to figure it out themselves. So I would agree 100% that there's not enough challenging repetitions done in just your typical BP, and that's what we try to strive to do every lesson. I don't even care if the kid's 9 years old and not very good. I'm going to throw him 30 minutes of baseball just to get him to understand the feeling of the ball coming to him and the velocity behind it and all that kind of stuff that goes with it.
When I talk about hitting, I always talk about in my garage. I've got one of these little heavy bags like I bought on Amazon, and I do just a little part of my workout a couple times a week is just hitting the heavy bag. And I'm going to tell you what, man, I think I look awesome on that thing. I land every punch. Every punch. I've never been knocked out. I bet you I look awesome because I've taken out all the hard parts.
Exactly.
Like the bag doesn't move, right? It's weighted to the ground. There's nobody trying to hit me back, and I feel like that's what we're hitting. We take out all the hard parts. Of course you teed off on that. It's sitting on a tee. You took out the hard part of having, so it's funny. So, you've been really generous with your time. Let's put this on the runway. We talked about a bunch of things. What are some of the things, again, that you feel like let's stay on hitting that are really crucial? If we had to give, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 things that a dad should focus on with his son, and we have some players that listen to, what would be a couple of those things? And maybe they're from your book.
Well, with this generation, with all the tee work and stuff like that, I think the main thing is just what we talked about, the live repetition. So I honestly just think kids don't get enough live repetition. I think that, they want to work hard. Maybe they don't have enough space at their house and they go hit off a tee. And quite honestly, that's great work, but are they really getting better? That's the question. So the first thing is the repetition. The second thing is just individualize your approach for who you are as a hitter and who you are as a person. You can't have, a kid that's 15 years old and 6'4" and 200 pounds already try to hit the ball on the ground. It's like teach that kid to hit a bomb every time he swings the bat because that's his ticket to play at the next level. If he can't learn how to hit a bomb, he's not playing. And it's totally opposite. You got that little slappy lefty on your team that's super fast. Tell that kid to let the ball travel deep, hit the ball oppo, try to go oppo with it, get on base, be that type of hitter. So you have to understand the type of player that you have too as well. And then at an early age, really at an early age, and when I mean early age, I'm probably around that 9 to 14-year-old age, really teach kids how to be explosive and aggressive. Like really teach them some aggression. And that's lost these days because everything's so focused on how pretty your swing could be. And all I see is pretty swings that can't compete. So if you really teach kids some aggression, some bat speed, really learn how to attack the ball, it just builds confidence more than anything else. And you know, the last thing is just learning how to challenge yourself depending on the type of hitter you are as far as what the trajectory is. I think trajectory these days is lost. I think kids are in a cage and they crush one really low and they think they crushed it and it's like a two-hopper to shortstop. It's like we have to train our kids in the cage to elevate the ball over the infielders to get base hits. I mean, look at Altuve yesterday. He's the smallest player in the big leagues, and he ain't trying to hit an oppo ground ball. He's trying to drive the ball out of the yard. He hit 3 bombs. So it's like, are we trying to teach kids to hit home runs? No, they're probably not going to, but we have to teach them to hit the ball into the outfield at least, or at least to give them opportunity to get on base by hitting the ball harder over the infielder. So those are the things that I would stress these days. And you notice I didn't say anything about the swing. It's all individualized approach, and the swing's just a piece of it. But I would definitely recommend working on those more than anything else.
Troy, that was awesome, man. So everybody listening, go to TroyPSilva.com. I think you probably have heard kind of what you can be exposed to, the type of instruction. As a company, we deal with a lot of instructors, and this is probably the best podcast that we've done as far as really like practical stuff that you can go use and just change your philosophy about it. So go to TroyPSilva.com. Check out he's got an analysis offer there that I think would just be, especially for what you're offering it for, I think would just be like a no-brainer for dads to do. Even if it's just to kind of hear, you know, some more detailed instruction from you on that. I think that's a great thing. And then 9 Innings of Hitting is available on your website and on Amazon. So Troy, I thank you so much for your time. And anything else you want to add? Final words of wisdom?
Well, since this is kind of a dad's podcast, I am a dad, so I understand what dads are dealing with. And, you know, of course, all of us dads want what's best for our kid. But, I mean, I'm learning more and more and more every day doing this. It's more about your relationship with your kid and teaching them the discipline and the structure that comes along with baseball and stuff. And if it happens, that's great. But you don't have to travel all over the place to go get it. Just allow them to have fun. Have your kids smile a lot. Don't put too much pressure on them. Like my video with Jose the other day, it's like just sit in the stands and enjoy your son watching. Just enjoy them playing the game while you're watching. You don't have to pace up and down. Just don't say stupid stuff to them. Just let them figure it out. There's a lot to it. I think that some dads actually mess up, but we all want what's best for our kids, and just the best way to do that is just love them, you know, spend the time with them, and don't pressure them too much.